Welcome to Reading the Bible with Pastor. Today we're on Genesis chapter 41 starting at verse 37. Last time we read that Joseph had interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh, and afterwards had given him some suggestion on how he would get through the 7-year famine that he would take up during the 7 years of fruitfulness, 1/5 of the land's produce. So we'll see what happens after this proposal to Pharaoh. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this, in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are." Probably here pointing to the fact that he does believe that God has spoken to Joseph, and if God has spoken to Joseph, then what he says must be true and good for the land. "You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards to the throne will I be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him in garments of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. All these are symbols of his authority now. And he made him ride in his second chariot, and they called out before him, "Bow the knee." Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no one shall lift up hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." So here, no one can take action unless Joseph allows it, unless Joseph tells him to do it. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphanath-Paaneah, which may mean the God speaks and he lives, pointing to the fact that Joseph was able to interpret his dreams. And he gave him in marriage Asana, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. So Asana means belonging to the goddess Neith. Potiphar, not to be confused with Potiphar. Potiphar that name means he whom Ra has given. And then the city of On here is probably the city of Heliopolis, which is the city of the sun, and is located really close to modern-day Cairo. So Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. This puts him about 13 years in Egypt. During the 7 plentiful years, the earth produced abundantly. And he gathered up all the foods of these 7 years which occurred in the land of Egypt, and put the food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields around it. And Joseph stored up the grain in great abundance, like the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured. Before the year of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore them to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for he said, "God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house." Manasseh means making to forget. The name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Ephraim, it means making fruitful. And here, what's interesting is he calls Egypt the land of my affliction. And still, here it shows that Joseph longs and desires to be back with his family in the promised land, because he knows the God who's answered his prayers for interpretation of the dreams is in fact the one who promised that land to the family of Abraham. We'll continue with verse 53. The 7 years of plenty that occurred in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried out to Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph. What he says to do, what he says to do to you, do. So when the famine had spread over all the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the earth came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe over all the earth. Here in this portion of chapter 41, we see that Joseph is placed as second in command, as he had done in Potiphar's house. And here he was able to interpret the dreams and implement a plan to save Egypt during the famine and provide for the people during this time. As always, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll continue reading the Bible with Pastor.